and Mama Chauvin speaks out. Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America.
What are you people? We're Americans.
CAR.
We're Americans indeed. This is Derek Chauvin's mother, who is going to, you know, those things in the court where they're like character witnesses or whatever, you plead for clemency or mercy or whatever. So this is Chauvin's mom, who up to this point we've never heard anything from her. So this is her pleading for Derek Chauvin to have leniency in sentencing.
OLYN Pawlenty, PAWLENTY. I am the mother of Derek Chauvin. I am here to speak on behalf of my entire family. On November 25th, 2020, not only did Derek's life change forever, but so did mine and my family's. Derek devoted 19 years of his life to the Minneapolis Police Department. It has been difficult for me to hear.
Oh, her life changed, and the life of her everybody's life changed. Are you going to mention at all Floyd's family and the fact that their lives changed too, Ms. Chauvin, or whatever your name is?
Read what the media, public, and prosecution team believe Derek to be an aggressive, heartless, and uncaring person. I can tell you
it might have to do with the fact that your son sat on a dude's neck for close to 10 minutes and murdered him in broad daylight without any affect of remorse, even after one of his officer friends and the EMT and the people surrounding him were telling him not to do so. So there's that.
That is far from the truth. My son's identity has also been reduced to that as a racist.
Well, I don't know about the personal opinions of your son, man, but I mean, he's part of a racist system. That's obvious. But whether he individually is a racist, we don't know. But racism wasn't what he was charged with. He was charged with murder.
Want this court,
which does speak very interestingly in our culture, considering, like, I always say, like, why is racism the unpardonable sin? Like, the irony here is amazing. She's saying, my son's not a racist. Yeah, he's a murderer. Holy moly. Look, I don't think she's... it's not even a criticism of her. It's our society. We've elevated racism to be like the worst possible thing you can be, when in reality, it's probably the most likely thing you can be, myself included. We continue.
To know that none of these things are true and that my son is a good man.
James Rutherford says she never speaks of the loss of the Floyd family. Well, I'm going to give her a shot. I mean, I'm going to assume she's not going to, but she may. Obviously, Brother Rutherford maybe he's heard it before, but I haven't yet, so we're going to give her a shot.
Derek always dedicated his life and time to the police department.
I bet
Even
he did.
on his days off, he would call in to see if they needed help.
Yeah, what's really interesting is that a lot of officers will do that because they get the overtime pay. As a matter of fact, there is a high-profile case in which a unarmed black individual was murdered, and the killer wasn't even supposed to be on the op. They just jumped on to get some more overtime. And that's as much as I'll say about that. So it's a very common thing for officers to do. It doesn't necessarily speak to the guilt or innocence of anyone. All I'm saying is this idea that he called in when he was off shift indicates how dedicated he was. No, he was just being a good capitalist. We continue.
Derek is a quiet, thoughtful, honorable, and selfless man.
Well, he was very quiet when he was choking Floyd to death. That's true. That's true. He was extremely quiet, which is one of the things that made people say we're dealing with a sociopath here, because he displayed zero affect in the act of killing. And I've known Navy SEALs, which their job is just to kill, who have an extremely difficult time with killing. Like, I've seen them. It's clear. They have a hard time killing. Mr. Chauvin is not one of those. I've also seen guys who enjoyed killing, and I've also seen guys who are neutral. Derek Chauvin looked like one of those neutral guys. He certainly didn't look like one of those guys that hates killing.
He has a big heart, and he always has put others before his own. The public will never know the loving and caring man he is, but his family does.
Here's I love DeWalt. This is what I love about, and we're going to do another segment about Tucker Carlson and this Dunning-Kruger stuff. Anyone that has spent 3 months in jiu-jitsu without a motive knows Floyd wasn't choked to death. Okay, so here's DeWalt. If you spent 90 days in jiu-jitsu, you know Floyd wasn't choked to death. Okay. All right. And now here's Wade. Here's Wade Wilson. Did you ever see the video of a police officer that shot and killed the unarmed guy at the motel? That didn't get nowhere close to media attention, the case that George Floyd got. That's because it doesn't happen quite as often. The young man's name was Daniel Shaver, Wade. And I've spoken about Brother Shaver many times. And the officer who killed him got off. And he wasn't able to be individually sued because of the doctrine of qualified immunity. Okay? So I'm very, very much aware of that. The problem is the degree of the heinity of this crime was too much to bear. Because he sat on the man's neck for 10 minutes and murdered him. You know, pulling a trigger is a split-second decision. And nobody's going to say that's okay. But there was more outrage over this than there was over Trayvon Martin. There was no property that got destroyed over Trayvon Martin. There was no property that got destroyed over Tamir Rice. These are all kids that were murdered. It was how heinous the crime was that made people say enough is enough in regard to George Floyd.
Even though I have not spoken publicly, I have always supported him 100% and always will.
Okay, now she's always going to support her her son, and she always will. Well, I mean, she's a mom. That's her job. So, of course she's going to advocate for her son. Now, here's another one. Here's Doug Johnson. How many kids in Chicago killed last week? This is a ridiculous, silly, racist, black on black crime, ridiculous argument. Hey, Doug, when Davon shoots Javon and he does it on camera, Davon gets arrested immediately and he gets charged immediately, and 3 weeks later he gets sentenced. When Derek Chauvin murdered George Floyd, they sent a detachment of 100 cops to his house to protect him. And by the way, the killers of Breonna Taylor are still out free roaming the city. Same thing with Elijah McClain. Ridiculous argument. I love you, Doug. Ridiculous. You guys got to get better. You got to get better material.
Derek has played over and over in his head the events of that day. I've seen the toll it has taken on him.
Oh man, it's taking a heavy toll on Chauvin. Doug, answer what I just said. See, Doug Johnson, I love him. But Doug, answer what I said. When dudes are shooting each other, especially on camera, they get arrested immediately. Doug, tell us why the killers of Breonna Taylor are still free. They killed that girl in her own home. Why are they still free, Doug? Unbelievable. Look, and then look at the response. Look at the response. Horrible stories everywhere. Many don't make the national news. So he comes with a silly racist argument. And I love him. I don't care because I like my racist explicit. He comes with, how many black people were killed, huh? How many black on black crime? And then when he gets completely refuted, instead of dealing with the actual argument, he says, hey, there's lots of bad stories everywhere. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But that's my guy. I love him. We text back and forth. It's fun. I love him. He's just, look, you're born and raised in a certain area, exposed to certain things and not exposed to certain things. And, you know, it happens.
Sir Derek, well, when you sentence my son, you will also be sentencing me.
Oh, subhanallah. When you sentence my son, you also sentence me. Here's Chris Clements. Why is it every time I hear you counter a different point of view, I hear you say racist comment? Well, Chris, that's probably because you're not familiar with my work. Go watch the last 3 or 4 videos. I didn't say anything about racist comments with people who disagree with me. As a matter of fact, if you look at the pinned comment on the last video I did about Jimmy Dore and Cenk, somebody said, hey, I disagree with you. Here's why. And then I responded by saying, oh, you're right. That was an oversight on my part. And there was a racial undertone to it, and I didn't bring race into it because the salient point was correct. So much so that I pinned it in the previous video. Go check it out. This is just fragility from people who can't argue. That's not an argument, Chris, and neither did Doug. Doug didn't make an argument, and neither did you. That's called fragility, and it's called not wanting to learn. We continue.
I will not be able to see Derek, talk to him on the phone, or give him our special hug.
Now, I don't know what she means talk to him on the phone, because I'm pretty sure those guys get to talk to people on the phone. So I don't know what she means by that. But I mean, we know the point. And I think, look, if you segment out the obvious social issue that's happening just on a human level, obviously everybody can commiserate with that. The problem, though, Ms. Chauvin, is that your son made it so that George Floyd's family can't do any of that stuff either. They can't even talk to him on the phone. Your son can talk to you on the phone. They can't with George.
Plus the fact that when he is released, his father and I most likely will not be here.
Inshallah.
Derek, my happiest moment is when I gave birth to you.
That's tough, man. Look, again, I'm not sure that I agree with James Rutherford, but I understand the sentiment. If she supports him unconditionally, then she deserves this sentence. I don't know, bro. I don't know. The love of a parent is many times irrational. I don't know about that, but I hear what you're talking about, but I also know what it's like to be a parent. And I had a mother. Well, my mom would unconditionally support me in public, but when I was wrong, she would get at me Jamaica style in private. But she would never do that in front of people. That was our code. We would never do that in front of people, but you definitely heard about it. You definitely heard about it though later. For sure.
And my second is when I was honored to pin your police badge on you. I remember you whispering to me, "Don't stick me with it."
That's a sweet story. You soft as hell, bro. Look, man, that's gotta resonate with you. I remember when my brother graduated, and we went to Paris Island. We got to see him and all that, and he came in. I hadn't seen him in a while. I was like, "Oh my God, there's my brother." He's like a superhero. It was honestly, one of the proudest moments in my entire life. Like, way more proud than any of my accomplishments. I mean, my brother couldn't be there for any of my grads or anything like that, but I'm massively proud of my other brother. When he graduated, he was going through a really arduous selection course, and it was one of those things where I couldn't be there, right? But yeah. So damn proud of my little brother, man. That was like one of the craziest moments in my life. So I get it. Trust me, I get it, Mama Chauvin.
Derek, I want you to know I have always believed in your innocence, and I will never waver from that. I have read numerous letters, seen the toll it has.
Whoa. I'll always believe in your innocence. I mean, again, it's his mom. You got to give her a pass, right?
I have always believed in your innocence, and I will never waver from that. I have read numerous letters from people around the world that also believe in your innocence.
Yeah, what was really interesting was that even Trump was saying, "Oh, this looks really bad." Ben Shapiro, all the right wingers were saying it looked really bad. You know when that changed? When Candace Owens, the arch coon of America, shot that video completely disparaging Floyd, bringing up stuff in his past, not acknowledging that he, had repented, turned his life around, and was leading Bible studies and such. Nope, he was just a horrible drug dealer who put a gun to a woman, blah, 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 blah. Then it shifted, and then the racists got the green light to go and say whatever they wanted about Floyd. And about how much they love Derek Chauvin, how they, I was looking at some of the Ben Shapiro comments. Are like, he should get a medal for getting one of these druggy thugs, nigger, off the street. So initially everybody was like, man, this is so heinous, we got to do something about it. Then after that, we just went on like nothing happened. We continue. No, Doug, I don't have much figured out, but I do believe, generally speaking, my eyes when I see them for whatever. Now, I will tell you, I have never watched the entire George Floyd video from A to Z. I've never watched it. I have no need to see these folks do this over and over and over again. And if you're black, I don't suggest you watch these videos. But I don't, these are all just throwaway statements that people make when they have a bad position and they're too prideful to say they have a bad position. They say stuff like that.
No matter where you go, where you are, I will always be there to visit you. I promise you I will stay strong.
Well, why did you say that you wouldn't be able to talk to him or see him ever again? You said you're going to visit him. Weird, man.
As we talked about, and I want you to do the same for me. I will do what you told me to do, take care of myself, so I will be here for you when you come home. Remember, there is no stronger bond or love than a mother's love. One final thought I want you to remember. Remember, you are my favorite son. Thank you for your time.
I hope she doesn't have any other sons. Holy moly. This is an example, though, parents, white or black. But if you're white, you're in a lot more danger of this because of the way our society is structured. It's good to love your kids, but you cannot co-sign your kids' bad behavior. You got to discipline them, and you got to call them out when they're wrong. Like I said, my mom would never publicly side with anybody against me or our household. But when we got inside, you got the justice. Let me say it that way. Look, my parents are Jamaican, all right? Like they didn't believe in this. Anyway, this is what happens, man. When you refuse to hold your kids accountable, now I see why he was so sociopathically able to extinguish this man's life without even blinking. He was raised with a woman like that who enabled all of his behavior. This is what happens. I was looking at some of the Ben Shapiro. This is overkill. I was looking at some of the Ben Shapiro folks. Do you know some of these people are saying that Derek Chauvin was never on Floyd's neck? They literally say that. We're teaching Orion to use words for his body parts, so he'd be like, "Oh, beard," or whatever. That is his neck. Okay? That's what you call the space between a man's head and his shoulder is called his neck. I know now look, Ben Shapiro is a brilliant man. A lot of his constituency are not very good. Steven Crowder did a sketch. Correct. Steven Crowder did a sketch mocking the death of George Floyd, saying it wasn't on his neck. Now earlier we had somebody say anybody that's taken jiu-jitsu for 90 days knows that he wasn't on George Floyd's neck. Well, they brought in an expert witness. He's not a jiu-jitsu practitioner, but he is just a doctor. He's just a medical examiner. Okay? So he's not a jiu-jitsu practitioner for 3 months. He's a medical practitioner for 20 plus years. He went to school for 14 years of it. You know, hey, it is what it is. It's not as an expert as the guy in the YouTube comment section, but here is what the scholar had to say about, the doctor had to say about how Brother Floyd expired, okay? And again, I only have to do this because the Ben Shapiro fans were saying that it was medically proven that he was just on his shoulder. We continue. All right, so
very, very attentive, and it was noted that during this testimony, as long as it was, all of those jurors were taking notes.
Gripping testimony from the prosecution's medical expert testifying about what caused George Floyd's death.
The cause of death is a low level of oxygen that caused the brain damage and caused the heart to stop.
Dr. Martin Tobin, an expert on breathing and lung function, walking the jury through 3D diagrams illustrating the factors he believes impacted George Floyd's breathing and led to his death, including his body pressed against the pavement, handcuffs, being in the prone position with knees on his neck, back, torso, and arm.
So this is your windpipe here.
Dr. Tobin demonstrating for the jury, asking them to follow along on their own bodies. Most did, placing their hands on their necks and the parts of the anatomy that affect breathing, analyzing the video frame by frame, pointing to Chauvin's body position in this image.
What you're seeing is that the toe of his boot is no longer touching the ground. This means that all of his body weight is being directed down at Mr. Floyd's neck.
And showing jurors how Floyd struggled, even using his hands to try to make room to breathe and stay alive.
You see his knuckle against the tire. This is extraordinarily significant because this tells you that he has used up his resources and he is now literally trying to breathe with his fingers and knuckles.
Dr. Tobin pinpointing the exact difficult moment he says Floyd died on the ground under Chauvin's knee.
You can see his eyes, he's conscious, and then you see that he isn't. That's the moment the life goes out of his body.
The doctor describing what happened when Floyd became non-responsive.
The knee remains on the neck for another 3 minutes and 27 seconds after he takes his last breath. After there's no pulse, the knee remains on the neck for another 2 minutes and 44 seconds.
And he was emphatic. It was the officer's actions that killed Floyd, nothing else.
A healthy person subjected to what Mr. Floyd was subjected to would have died as a result of what he was subjected to.
And testimony resumes here at the courthouse later this morning.
Yeah, so look, it wasn't a jiu-jitsu practitioner. It was just a medical expert. It was just there's DeWalt. I'm sorry, Mr. DeWalt. I was not able to get you a 90-day jiu-jitsu practitioner, but that's a medical examiner who just testified. So look, I was gonna, she deserves it. So here's testimony. So we heard from the mother of Derek Chauvin, but we haven't here. We actually have this.
Your Honor, we have 4 victim impact statements. We will start with the.
This is his daughter.
Well, when you ask about him, what are you asking about?
Well, I was asking, how did my dad get hurt?
Do you wish that he was still here with us?
Yeah, but he is.
Through his spirit?
Yes.
Yes. And when you see your daddy again one day, what do you want to do when you see him?
I want to play with him.
What kind of games do you want to play with him?
I want to play with him, have fun, go on a plane ride, and that's it.
Yeah.
We used to have dinner meals every single night before we went to bed. My daddy always used to help me brush my teeth.
Oh. Do you miss him helping brush your teeth?
Yes.
How do you hope that the world remembers him?
Well, they help him because those mean people did something to him.
Yeah. If you could say anything to your daddy right now, what would it be?
It would be, I miss you and I love you.
All right. Thank you, Gianna. I really appreciate you answering questions today.
Notice the empathy in Derek Chauvin's face as his George Floyd's daughter was testifying about the impact of the loss of her father. Now here's DeWalt. DeWalt is a guy who said anybody who knows 90 Days of Jiu-Jitsu knows that Floyd wasn't killed, right? So then we play the clip of not the jiu-jitsu practitioner for 90 days, but the medical examiner. Here's his response. At least he's been drug-free for over a year now. He typed that as Floyd's daughter, Gianna, was talking about the impact of the loss of her father. This is what he types. Now, here's a reason I posted this. This is very important. I'm specifically talking to black people now and white people who love us. Listen, this is the world you live in. This is these people. This is what they are. And this callous dismissal of a human life, this sort of, we don't care about you or how you feel or the pain that you feel. We don't care, Vin, that every time you see George Floyd in that position, you're thinking about your son. And God help anybody who makes such a mistake. Some of the lessons learned are, look, man, black people, you can't sit there. Now, Shorty had a camera, right? That's a woman. But there were a bunch of dudes over there. You can't sit there and let something like that happen. You can't. You got people like DeWalt in your country. You can't sit there and watch that happen. We're all going home or nobody goes home. Black Panther style. Period. That's number one. Number two. People like DeWalt, because they exist in this country, their function, and now I'm going to get spiritual here because it is what it is. Their function in this country is to get you to the point where you get angry, right? And then you lash out so that they can continue to say you're an angry, crazy person. Black people, listen to me very, very closely. Jesus told his first followers to walk the extra mile. You ever heard that? Walk the extra mile? Do you understand the cultural context there? The Jewish people were being oppressed by the Romans. So you got a bunch of people of color oppressed by a bunch of Italian police. Okay? The Romans, because the Romans are from Italy, right? And the Jews are from the Middle East, from the Mediterranean. They were darker than me. So Jesus tells them, if somebody makes you carry a pack, carry it an extra mile. What are they talking about? Well, what's happening is the Roman military, it's the Mediterranean, and you've got about 85 pounds of gear, kind of like a Marine ruck march, right? And they could compel you. You're playing dreidel or catch with your little Jewish kid, and a Roman soldier could roll up to you and say, hey, Jew, carry my pack. And you'd have to stop playing pass with your son and carry the Roman soldier's pack for an entire, for a mile, okay? Or he could do it to your son, and there's nothing you could do. And so, just like anybody on the planet, you can only do that to men for so long before they respond, right? So the Jewish solution was this group called the Sicarii, and the Sicarii literally it translates to dagger men. And they'd literally walk around with daggers, right? And they would do asymmetrical warfare. They would go in there, stab up a Roman soldier, and then bleed back into the background. So that was their solution. So Jesus comes along and says, hey, if they make you walk a mile, walk an extra mile with them. Read Josephus and Tacitus and Pliny and all the rest of them. They were randomly jamming up Jews and crucifying them. Randomly. So when Jesus is telling you walk the extra mile, you could very well be walking 2 miles with somebody who crucified your brother. And that's the way that Jesus is telling you to respond to these people. Let me explain something to you, dear listener. There is systematic racism in this country. Absolutely. We just saw it. There are people like DeWalt in this country. Absolutely. But ladies and gentlemen, black people in America are not doing worse than Jesus' first followers in Rome. And if Jesus' first followers were instructed to love their enemies that way, that means that we have no excuse not to love people like DeWalt or Chauvin, or even if you're friends who have insensitive, horrifically racist, evil tendencies. You still have to love them. People like DeWalt, who are obviously inspired by Satan to say things like this to you in the midst of a very painful situation. I mean, as the man's daughter is talking about losing her father. Again, I obviously disagreed with Chauvin's mother, right? But at least I could stop and say, I understand why, as his mother, she's saying, I could understand the humanity, but DeWalt didn't even have the humanity. Now, this type of ignorance and callous disregard for life is what characterizes a whole bunch of people. DeWalt is just speaking out of his ignorance. He said anybody with 90 days in jiu-jitsu knows he wasn't on Floyd's neck. Then the medical doctor comes, completely refutes him. Instead of saying he's wrong, what does he do? He just goes to the next thing. And then he says some crazy thing to try to trigger me or whatever. He doesn't know who I am, obviously. But people like that are there. The devil has a reason for why people like DeWalt around, but simultaneous to that, so does God. You have got to overcome this stuff. You overcome evil with good. You don't sit there and get in the gutter with these people. Our job is to bring people out of the gutter. DeWalt obviously is in the gutter. Our job is to bring him out. The man has lost part of his humanity, and so has Chauvin, by the way. He's losing the image of God when you do things like that. So you have to understand what you're dealing with. But I'm telling you, if you allow yourself to get angry and bitter and hate white people and hate police and celebrate when police die, I'm telling you, you'll never escape it. You got to let that go. You got to let it go. And you have to understand that people come from all types of different backgrounds and things of that nature. And sometimes they're going to do and say terrible things. I don't know what kind of pain DeWalt is in. I don't know what kind of pain DeWalt is in. I don't know what his experiences are. He's just a guy that we saw on the internet. That's all. So you can't jump on him and say, oh my God, blah, 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 blah. You got to pray for him. And black people, if you allow yourself to get subsumed into hating these people, you're going to lose. They're not ultimately your enemy. They're penultimately your enemy for sure. But Jesus told us to love our enemies. So you know what I do every time I see a police officer at Chipotle? I buy him a sandwich. I buy it for him. Of course they're my enemy. Of course. Now, they as an individual might not be my enemy, right? In the same way that in the 1930s, or late 1930s, a German officer wouldn't necessarily be the enemy of his Jewish neighbor, but because he's part of a system, he's by default that enemy, you see. But how does Jesus tell you how to handle your enemies? Like the Sicarii, just stab them up, kill them? Nope. Nope. Walk the extra mile. And you know, by the end, do you know by the end of the first century, you know what happened? Do you know who Christianity was most popular with? And that's why I put Darren's criticism of what I said up there. Sounds like slavery version of Christianity. Darren, I hear you, bro. But do you know at the end of the first century, do you know who Christianity was most popular with? Two groups of people: slaves and soldiers. Huh? How? Very, very simple. There you are. You're a nasty Roman soldier. You're an oppressor, and you go through this neighborhood. You say, "Hey, Jew, carry my pack." So the guy carries your pack for a mile. He goes, "You know what? I'll do it another mile. You look pretty hot." And you go, "Are you serious?" He goes, "Yeah, I'll carry you another mile." So you go through the same place every week, and you always go to that guy, right? Because he's going to get you 2 miles. Everybody else is going to get you 1 mile. Finally, you say, "Hey, man, what is going on with you? Why are you doing this for me?" And then you get to say, "Well, you know that guy Yeshua that you guys crucified about 5 weeks ago?" The Roman soldier gets all kind of nervous because he knows what's coming next. "You know the guy that you guys crucified a couple weeks ago, and then you can't find his body because the disciples stole the body?" Yeah, that guy. What about him? Well, I hate you with a passion. You crucified my cousin 2 years ago. I would love to kill you. As a matter of fact, I was part of the Sicarii gang, but then I met Jesus, and Jesus told me to do this. I don't know why he told me to do it. I'd just rather kill you than this, but I'm going to obey Jesus because he rose from the dead. He's God in the flesh. So that's why I'm carrying this for you. And by the end of the first century, go look at the interview with Ben Shapiro. Go look at the Ben Shapiro and who's the atheist guy? Sam Harris. And Ben Shapiro is trying to argue that Christianity's had a good influence in the world, particularly the Western world. You know what Sam Harris said? He said, "Well, I mean, I guess, but they destroyed the Roman Empire." And Ben Shapiro said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Because of the influence of Christianity, the soldiers lost their desire for war." And that was one of the main contributors, the consistent weakening. Obviously, there's sociological and other issues, but the weakening, the rotting from the inside of the Roman soldiers' propensity towards violence was one of the major factors in Sam Harris's mind for the destruction of the Roman Empire. Jesus, brilliant. Oh, sure, you could be a Sicarii and stab him up and all the rest of it, and then the Romans can crush you. Or you can love your enemy and completely destroy your enemy by making him your friend. There's 2 ways to destroy an enemy. One is to kill him, he won't be around, and 2 is to make him your friend. You see? And that's how we took over the Roman Empire, and that's how we're going to take America and the world. And if America will not repent, God will just simply sink us into the ocean. So do not allow I'm not certain that Harris is correct completely either. I'm just saying that we wouldn't have even an argument that way if we would have followed our natural instincts, which is, I know what my natural instincts are. I know what my natural instincts are with Chauvin, and with all the other people. I know what my instincts are, but what I'm saying is we should trust Jesus because he's already demonstrated that he knows how to handle these people. So look, we can go the way of the sword. We can go the way of the sword. We can go the way of the sword and vengeance and rage and returning evil for evil. We can do that. But Jesus said, if you take up the sword, you'll die by the sword. And then 40 years later, sure enough, what happened? The Jewish people wouldn't listen to Jesus. They took up the sword against the Romans, and then they were completely and totally annihilated. A million of them were killed, and another million of them glutted the slave market so much that it lowered the price because of supply and demand. So we've got two choices. We've got two choices, okay? And what I would say is, I'm pleading with you, black people. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't really follow the trial. I didn't follow the Chauvin trial. I didn't cover it a lot. I don't even think I've shot many videos on it because it honestly, it brings up the worst on the right wing. Honestly, this is the worst version of people I have seen. The absolute worst. And obviously, DeWalt didn't come out looking very well in this video, but it is what it is. So I hear you. I understand. It sounds like I'm, it's a slave way and blah blah blah. But I think Jesus knows what he's doing. So there you go. Love your neighbor. Take care of each other. Middle America. We are the media. Till next time, guys.